Hi there, it's Patricia Coughlin, and today I want to talk to you about embracing uncertainty. I was listening to some fabulous talks by Ellen Langer, and I can't recommend them highly enough. She's a remarkable psychologist, the first woman to ever get tenure in the psych department at Harvard, and she does work on mindfulness, and she doesn't mean meditation. Remember, meditation is an avenue to mindfulness, but mindfulness is just about being present and engaged and noticing things, and especially noticing new things, right? So we can get into a trap of thinking that we know things for sure. And she says, those who are, what does she say? Often certain, frequently in error, right? What was true last week is no longer true, or what was true with this person is not true with the other person. So how do we embrace this kind of uncertainty and variability so that we can be really present, noticing what's actually happening in real time and responding in a real way to what's happening now, not to our ideas or, again, thinking about the patient you saw 2 months ago instead of the one who's sitting in front of you right now. So we do need theories, we need guidelines, but not rigid rules. And I had two really interesting experiences just this week that brought that home to me. So I adhere to psychoanalytic theory, right? The theory of unconscious conflicts, unconscious determination of behavior. I'm interested in getting to the bottom of things and getting to that unconscious source of, repetitive behavior. But there are lots and lots of ways to get there, right? So you don't want to be too rigid about it has to be always, pressure and challenge, and that I already know ahead of time that the source of this is going to be guilt over rage. I mean, if I have that idea, then I am going to seek to confirm that hypothesis. I'm going to have a confirmation bias. So I want to stay open and curious so I can actually learn what is responsible for the patient's suffering, but also what is actually responsible for their healing. We don't know enough about the mechanisms of change. So let me just tell you about two examples, again, that I had this week, right, that spoke to that need to be open, curious, and really ultimately to listen to the patient and their response to intervention. So I was doing an initial consultation with somebody. This week it was actually a therapist who's trying to learn ISTDP. And this person felt that he was blocked in being able to help patients with anger because he knew he had a conflict around anger, particularly in relation to his father. So we spent some time helping him get in touch with that anger toward his father, which wasn't necessarily easy, right? He was conflicted about it. He was anxious and had a number of defenses that had to be addressed. But then he really got in touch with this rage toward his father and the impulse to just nail him, both emotionally, right, to expose his father and all the lies. I mean, the man was a philanderer and so on. And then to just physically beat him to a bloody pulp. And when that rage was up and out, he said he felt great, actually. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, that's fine and dandy, but we better get to guilt and grief as well. And so I said, okay, well, now your father's dead on the ground. You've killed him. He's a bloody pulp. I mean, what do you want? And he said, there was no face. It was unrecognizable, just a piece of meat. And so what are you going to do with the body, right? So hoping, right, that this would facilitate some of these mixed feelings. And he said, I'm done. I'm not going to take any responsibility for that. I'm done cleaning up his messes and also being the only one. The other people can take care of the body. And, he went on like this in a way that was actually made a tremendous amount of sense given his tendency to be overly responsible and, in fact, to spend an awful lot of time and energy cleaning up other people's messes and so on. So, again, it speaks to the need to be specific and have a case conceptualization so that you can understand, does what's happening make sense given that, right? Or do you need to revise your hypothesis? And again, ultimately, is what you're doing leading to symptom removal, to change? And in this case, it did. Had a follow-up session, and there was a dramatic change, right? So if I had adhered slavishly to my idea that, oh, well, he's going to have to get in touch with guilt, it could really go off the rails. The other example was a patient who, she's in her 60s and has had lifelong anxiety, depression, pain syndromes, and also a really relentless kind of self-criticism and self-monitoring. And so we've done a lot of work, again, getting through defenses, accessing her angry feelings toward parents and siblings and so on. And it's been helpful, but, not complete. And so 2 weeks ago, we were dealing with, again, feelings toward a particular person in the current. And then as she got in touch with her rage and then pain, she suddenly saw herself as an infant in a crib. And it turns out that her mother fell ill when she was 10 or 11 months old, and her father couldn't take care of all the children while she was away. So she was actually put in an orphanage for 4 or 6 weeks, which is just an eternity for an infant. And to suddenly lose your mother, father, siblings, everything. So she was like back there in an utter panic and just desperate. And this is her experience. Like every time someone she's close to is not available, she goes into this kind of attachment panic. And so she goes back to that and she says, oh my God, it's like I'm that infant in the crib and I'm just desperate. And it was like the end of the session, and all I said was, but you're not. Okay? So again, she's 62 or 63, right? So she's like stuck in existential time as if she's still that desperate infant. And so all I said was, she said, it's like I'm still back there. I said, but you're not. Okay, so we end. So the next session, she says, but you're not. But you're not. I can't tell you how many times I became aware of that in this last week. It has been life-changing. So again, be careful about getting too rigid in what you think leads to change. Now, was it important to get through defenses to feeling, to get to that memory? Absolutely. But was getting to her feelings alone enough? No. What was really important was that shift, that dramatic awareness that her identity, her sense of self as a helpless, desperate infant is what had to change, right? That suddenly she realized, but I'm not a helpless infant. I'm a competent adult. If something happens that I don't like, I can do something about it, right? So I hope these two examples illustrate for you, again, the importance of being present, listening, being curious, and flexible, but ultimately listening to the patient and together discovering both the source of their suffering, but also what is required to resolve their difficulties. Okay? So I am going away tomorrow on a 5-week sabbatical. And I'm just going to be doing some deep work, some writing. And I really don't know if I'm going to have the time or the energy to do any videos. So you may not hear from me until May. And then, of course, it's possible that as I'm digging in and doing some writing, I'll have ideas and I will post. But I'm not going to promise anything. So leave me your comments and questions. And for sure, I'll see you again in May. Bye-bye.